Well, hello. Welcome to Hobby Hotline, episode 315. We got the quad box going today. John, Dr. Beckett, Chris, and we're missing our center square. We're just going four today. How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Great. Thanks.
We were
I
talking
had
all
to be on. I had to be on because this is episode 315. That's the area code for Syracuse. So I figured I had to
Oh, nice.
represent.
Well, now everybody can start trying to find John's number. Mad City
We got
Blue,
the
good
first
morning. Stooks, what's going on? And Philly Joe, hello to everybody. Ruben, now it's a legend heavy episode that Ruben's here.
Mike Petty. Don't forget Mike Petty.
Right.
Right.
Not stop. Where's the new Hobby Hotline star Orlando? Don't worry, I'm working on the
He's
schedule.
coming
Soon. Good morning, Frank.
How does he know that? I didn't actually say anything. I guess Orlando's excited. Maybe Orlando's excited. And he told a few people. So
what's up, Mookie? Want to start actually. I said I was going to start on one thing, but I'm going to change it because get this out of the way. 2 card store thefts this week. We all hate seeing it, but I just want to throw it out there. There was one in Sacramento and one in Nashville this week. One was during the day and one was in the middle of the night. So, we all hate seeing it, especially, the LCSs, work so hard to compete. And it really is local business and small businesses. I guess, Chris, your first thoughts when you heard about some of these break-ins?
It's a continuing trend that we're not just seeing on the card side, but we've seen it at PCGS on the coin side as well, where things are getting more and more sophisticated with regard to these types of burglaries. And some are being more brazen, where it's not a level of sophistication. It's smash and grab and reckless. And it's scary. I've often thought about opening up a card shop myself, and you just have to have a lot of confidence in yourself to do it, because you're trying to pursue your passion, and then something like this happens and it gets ripped away from you. And it's not just that; it could be your life as well. Sometimes people are putting guns in your face. So it's scary. It's frustrating, and I wish more could be done to stop it. But definitely, hobby shop owners have to be on the defensive more than ever right now. It's scary.
Dr. Beckett, did you see this back in the 80s to any level and through the junk wax, or is it our perception that it seems more now?
It's more now for 2 reasons. One is that the value of unopened product and the easy, the fungibility of just steal some high-end unopened product and be able to fence it. And the other is grading. And actually the unopened product is easier because it'd be harder to trace. And you can, you don't have to go through the showcase and try to figure out which raw card I'm going to take and look them up in the middle of the night or anything. I mean, most of these, they already know what they're looking for. They're not taking cheap wax. They're taking expensive wax, and they're taking expensive graded cards.
Yeah. When you see tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in a couple of minutes, they knew what they were going for, without a doubt. John, you had a card shop way back when. Did you ever have issues with security?
No, but I will tell you this: I had a store for 6 years, and then I sold out to my partner to kind of do more traveling and shows, and we agreed on amicable terms. And then 3 months after I sold my half of the store out, the store got burned. Actually, I take that back. The store got robbed once when I was a partner in it, and all they did was take $50 out of the cash register. 3 months after I left, after the 6th year, they broke the glass and they took a lot of stuff. As a matter of fact, I had to talk to the police, being a former owner, and do all that stuff. But so twice, once when I was officially half owner, and then once 3 months after I left. So and this is 90. I think the first one was like 95, and the second one I referred to was 97. So even in the 90s, Well, like Dr. Beckett said, the values of stuff, we didn't have wax then that was worth that to what we see today. There were really no four, even the hottest products, 93 SP finest, they weren't four figures at that point. So, and the hobby wasn't getting the mainstream run that you see now on like financial networks and everyday news. So I think that factors in a little bit.
Well,
Um,
pilferage and theft is something that happens in a hobby shop almost every day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Where, I was talking with my local card shop, and he just had to ban a father and son for life because they were working together to steal boxes during trade nights. And it's like, good Lord, man, like what are we doing out there? So, yeah, it's frustrating to see that it's not just burglaries at a bigger level. It's more intimate than that, and that can be really hard for hobby shop owners when you have longtime customers doing the wrong thing and hurting your business. So yeah, it can be ugly.
The
I'm sorry.
not the headline, but the subtext to this is that when they come in there and they rob the store, they leave the cash register alone. What does that say? The cards are more valuable than the cash.
Yeah.
Most stores they rob, they're going to take the cash register, they're going to clean out some stuff, but they don't even mess with the cash register.
It's true. It's also it's the point is well made. Going after the wax instead of the singles is quick and easy. And Chris, also like you said with the coins, it's a small, easy item, and it's a shame.
Yep.
Wanted to say, Dan, happy Labor Day weekend to you and to everybody else. Definitely get that in there. Hope you enjoy some barbecue and have good weather wherever you are. Moving on, wanted to talk about Fanatics Fest. We haven't gotten a chance, the four of us certainly, to be together and talk about it. I was there on Saturday. Chris, you were there the whole time, and John and Dr. Beckett, I don't think you went. So, Chris, I saw the PSA booth. It was a madhouse in the best way possible. What were your impressions of Fanatics Fest version 1?
Different, just really, really different. You don't normally see Dana White walking through the aisles and breaking with people. You don't see Livy Dunn coming through and buying cards of her boyfriend Paul Skeens. You don't see Tom Brady walking through trading card shows. You don't see a club with Jay-Z and Beyonce coming to a card show. You don't see incredibly immersive activations from all the leagues at a normal card show. And that's just what it was. It wasn't a normal card show. You don't see panels with, thousands and thousands of people watching sports stars at a normal card show. So what I took away from it was it's not a normal card show. And while we did see some of our really good customers the first couple of days, what really encouraged me was on Saturday and Sunday in particular, it was a lot of families, a lot of first-time collectors. I talked with Sean from Steel City, and he said, I've never had to explain so many times what the difference between a blaster box and a hobby box. And he said after that, normally at a normal show when he does that, maybe 20% buy. At this show, 90% bought. So there were a lot of sports fans that we don't normally see at a card show and engaging. And for us at PSA, it was a lot of, what do you guys do here? Someone told me I had to get this graded, and so having some real entry level conversations with customers was great, because again, it wasn't the same people we always see. And that has been the promise of Topps and Michael Rubin, is that they will grow the category in a meaningful way. And I see Fanatics Fest as the first way to do that. And it's really interesting that they're not just planning one of these a year. There's going to be a lot of these in a lot of different regions, a lot of different markets. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see what they do, because when you've got Gronk going through a card show and spiking a card to break it out of its holder to sign, like that's different. It's newsworthy. It's positive. It's exciting. And I was very impressed with what they pulled off, but also very excited about what it means for the future.
Very similar, actually, to what I thought. It was not a card show. It was a sports. I mean, it was like All-Star Weekend, mixed in with Fanfest, mixed in with somebody mentioned the WWE entrance, Dan Ryan, I think, talking about how crazy those were, and if you were in the building, it was very exciting when that would happen. And there was a card show there. So that just was one component of what I thought was a larger sports fan show. And that's the difference. I wouldn't even compare it to the National because to me, that's apples and oranges. I think you have to take it at face value for it being a Fanatics show and what they are able to do with their partners. Dr. Beckett, any interest to go to a Fanatics Fest?
That's a complicated question. I think I'm very happy that I didn't go because I think it would have been a madhouse. I think that I'm so glad they did it, and I'm glad it was successful because this is the kind of stuff that does the 10X. But just so we're clear on this, is that, Chris, I think you've been involved with some shows. Maybe all of us have been involved with some bigger shows. This had to be a huge financial loser, okay, except for the fact that the marketing spend maybe will be paid back over the years in terms of building the category. So I'm very excited about that. But for them to do a big financial loser 3 times a year, we'll see how that goes. When I go to a show, there's 3 reasons I would go to a show. The distant third is seeing celebrities or corporate activations. 1 and 1A are, depending on how I feel that day, are either the collectors, my friends, or cards. And so this was 1/3 that, and 2/3 probably trying to slog through the crowd. And so I actually was in New York that weekend and did not go. I actually didn't go to the East Coast National either, although I'd been to that many, many times. But I totally applaud it. I don't know that I'll go because it's not my scene anymore for those reasons. And yet I hope they keep doing it and because I think their objectives were, I don't think they had a financial break-even objective. I think they had a buzz objective, and they totally achieved that. But I don't want to go to a show because of the buzz of celebrities. I want to go because I want to see my friends and I want to look at cards. I don't want to stand for autographs.
You're not there to run the 40-yard dash?
Maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, it looked like a hamstring problem waiting to happen for me.
Do you want me to comment on that comment from Tony?
Sure, go for it.
So Tony, TJ Online, he put, I'm still disappointed that Fanatics had their fest on the same weekend as the East Coast National. That was not, just so you know, that was not by accident. Word has it that Fanatics tried to buy that show, was not sold to them. So Michael Rubin said, "Okay, we'll compete on the same day." So this is what Michael Rubin does, right? He's a shrewd businessman. Some will say cutthroat. He's willing to lose money, even as Dr. Jim said, to promote his business and his company. I don't know. Should we put the GoFundMe link up for Michael Rubin so he can get back on his feet?
I'm just glad I didn't have to wear all white, Chris, for the weekend.
So listen, we can say whatever you want about, but he's a smart guy as well. If you want to paint the whole picture. So, but that's a little of the backstory there. So. Would it be interesting? I didn't go to Fanatics Fest. Danny knows there was a shot. There was kind of a 50-50 shot. New York's my hometown. I just had too much going on, and with school getting ready to start at that point, I couldn't get there. It just makes me wonder, are we going to see, like, to me, the National is the National, it's the Super Bowl of the hobby, but are we going to see someone like Fanatics do something on that level and compete with that, call it the Fanatical or whatever you want to call it? You know, is that the next progression in the trajectory, or will they, you know, again, that East Coast National is owned by the same folks as the regular National. So there's so many different tentacles, the way my mind works, that like what will be next?
I think it's not feasible, John. I mean, you'd be talking about 1 million square feet if you put those two events together. If you had the equivalent full national experience with the card dealers and all the booths and all that, and then throw in the fest aspects, I think you'd be pushing 1 million square feet. Traffic, parking, logistics. What we thought Cleveland was bad, I think it would overwhelm almost any place in America.
Yeah, but I gotta say that it's so different that I think you've got to experience it, and experience it with kids, whether it's your kids, your nephews, nieces, grandkids. It was really family friendly. And you know, we go to a lot of card shows where it's like, what do you want, kid? You know, and this was just a lot different and so immersive that I think that it is where I think most people would want to, you know, take their family. And having the next one in Orlando makes it very family friendly as well. So I think it's definitely worth seeing. It wasn't so busy that you couldn't move around. Like there were, you'd learn the pockets, like this area is always going to be busy, or beware the autograph pavilion. But you could move around, you could see stuff, and it was a show like I've never seen in, you know, my almost 30 years in the industry. So it's definitely worth checking out.
However, if you go with your 9-year-old son, 10-year-old son, it's going to be a joint positive experience. I don't deny that, but there aren't many 9-year-old sons that are going to want to sit with their dad at the dollar box, or dads that are going to stand in line for 2 hours for the kid to get an autograph or have a chance at something. So it's a completely different kind of experience when it's a generational thing. It's like going to Disneyland. The dad is going to have to ride on the rides that the kid wants to ride. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not the same as going to a card show with your buddies. If you go with your son, you're building the 10X thing, and you should do that. And that's a good thing. But the father and the son are each kind of giving up their day to go have an experience together. So I just think I applaud it. I hope it keeps going and increases, but it doesn't have to be better. It's different than the National. It's not better. Actually, it's better in some of those ways, but nobody's talked about the price. You know, when you go with your son, I think the National has free admission for kids. I don't think this was free admission for kids. So even so, they still lost money. I'd like to see free admission or drastically reduced admission, and then to me that'd be cool.
I definitely think it was pricey as an entry level first show. I think, you know, they were trying to build it up, and the price added some, I guess, cachet to the experience. But there was some open dealer tables I saw, and you know, I think they'll get the kinks worked out. Orlando said that the next one in Orlando is going to have more of a card show presence. So all the Orlandos are, so that'll be interesting to see. A lot of people are talking about the Burbank show. I don't know, Chris Carlin, if you guys were there, or if you were there, but I heard that was fantastic.
It was, and that was, again, more of that traditional card show, but there was incredible product in the room. There was all the right dealers. There was tons of foot traffic, and it was really, really busy. We were busy throughout. I know other companies were as well. It was one of our best shows since the National. So it was busy all weekend long, but it was interesting. Friday afternoon, who comes walking through the hall with Rob Veras, Michael Rubin, and Mike McMahon and their team. So kind of interesting how they're just seem to be much more serious about events and looking at them in a bigger way. So we'll see what comes from that.
And that's also been renamed now, so it's no longer. It's now the West Coast Show. Is that
West Coast Card Show? And yeah, they did something super unique there, and I can't believe the prices on some of these things. They had some Steph Curry baby-faced assassin cards made, and some of them were they were your badge for VIPs. And, some of those, just those cards are selling for a couple $100, which almost offsets the cost of the entry. But there were others that were autographed, and some that had his fingerprint on the back as well. And there's some buy it nows on those. I know buy it nows are one thing, but buy it nows for those for 20 to 30 grand. So that was a really unique element that they did. And the cards looked pretty good. And especially with Curry coming off the big Olympic performance, it was good timing and a unique idea. So I really like that. I thought that was very cool of them to incorporate.
Speaking of things that are popular and going crazy on eBay right now, I don't know if you guys saw the Shohei Ohtani bobbleheads that they gave away. There was a regular and a gold edition. And I am not making this up. I saved this here. There is a gold edition that just sold for over $1,400 or $1,500, and some are going for more than that. That blows me away for a giveaway, bobblehead. Is the hobby moving to more merchandise like this? I mean, bobbleheads were always slightly valuable in the older ones, but I've now seen multiple stadiums this year with lines around the block and everything else. John, I mean, are you a bobblehead guy? Would you ever go early to get a bobblehead?
Only if it's this one. No, I'm just kidding. Listen, bobbleheads. No, all joke aside, bobbleheads, like you said, Danny, they've been around, from the 40s and 50s and collectible, right? You go to the National. There's plenty of them there if you collect them or you buy them, including those originals. So I think it's already sort of a known collectible. And when you can get one for free from just attending the event, that's why you're going to see those lines. So I like them. I mean, I have some. I don't have a ton of them, just probably more because I don't have the room than dislike. They're just kind of a cool especially if you're a fan of that player or athlete or celebrity. And that's the thing. They make them for celebrities, athletes, and what have you. So
I think I feel like Dr. Beckett felt about Fanatics Fest. I'm glad people are happy with it. It's just not for me. If I'm putting 15 or 20,000 in the hobby, it is not going to be on a bobblehead. It'll be on something that'll end up in Chris Carlin's possession at some point.
Danny,
go ahead, Jim.
The world has an insatiable appetite for headlines.
Yes.
So it's almost like clickbait. I mean, they want to get the attention, and it's newsworthy because it's unusual. And I hope we keep having some of these stories, but it's not the mainstream of the hobby. But it's tangential, but it's curious. If it draws people in, I'm all in favor of it.
Well, Major League Baseball is definitely looking at successes that minor league baseball has had with their theme nights or different oddball types of giveaway nights, and incorporated that into their ticketing strategy. And if it puts butts in the seats, the owners are going to do more and more of it. And you look at things like Star Wars nights. My kids are most fascinated by they're baseball players in Star Wars uniforms, and how'd they come up with Juan Solo and things like that. So I think that it's smart that the teams are thinking in this way and offering more variety and more collectibles to fans. And again, this all helps the category grow as you have fans that are like, wait, what is this worth? And it dips their toe into the category and helps us grow up more. So I'm all for it.
Well, based upon the chat room reaction, they're very much more popular than I expected. There's some great ones that people are putting back in here.
And one of the reasons, Danny, too, is they do them even in minor league, single A, double A here in Syracuse, which is triple A for the Mets. There's probably 5 to 6 bobblehead nights a season of minor league stars or guys that have already, like Alonso. Syracuse had like a Pete Alonso bobblehead night. So the kids are getting in on these like early on, and then we remember them, right? We remember stuff from kids, and then when we're not kids and we're adults, it still hits that nostalgia nerve. So I think that's what bobbleheads kind of fit in is similar to cards. Many kids had their first bobblehead or still have them, and we get more, or we go back there again, if you will.
Absolutely. And to Dr. Beckett's point, the headline may not be the bobbleheads. It may be who it was. It was a Shohei Ohtani. And if you haven't heard, he's pretty good and pretty popular. And this week, it was announced an exclusive Topps contract for the foreseeable future. And this is important because it's U.S. and Japan, which was interesting that they included that. All autographs, memorabilia, everything related to him now goes through Topps. He's as big as anybody I've seen move a whole market in quite some time. Dr. Beckett, yeah, right. And by the way, he'll be back next year as a Cy Young winner, probably.
Yeah.
Dr. Beckett, your thoughts on the Ohtani exclusive? It's just a no-brainer move by Topps if they could do it.
It's not just that it's a no-brainer, and Chris knows from being on the manufacturer side is that this is a timely, bold movement for a manufacturer to strike while the iron is hot. Who knows what these bobbleheads or anything will be worth in 5 years? But right now, Shohei Ohtani is the real deal. He's the rage, and you double down on potential GOATs. I mean, Upper Deck was brilliant about that. Just doubling down on the GOATs. And so Topps is doing that. Of course, it's a good idea. They don't wait 3 years and put a committee on it. They jump out there and do it.
Does doing it before the season ends and before he might get to 50-50, did they save money, or does it not matter at this point? He's naming his price. Chris, I mean, how popular are you seeing, his stuff come through, and is there any stopping the momentum?
Yeah, I'm sure he probably was able to name his price, and it's something that Topps again is just going to need to be able to have premium products going forward. So it makes sense that they're acquiescing to whatever he wanted to get this deal done. But no, we're not seeing a slowdown in Shohei at all at PSA, and he is so big all over the globe. Like, I know we think about what's happening in America, but his global impact is insane. And he is someone that Topps really needs to unlock international. Not that to say that they don't already have a very successful international business, but if we look at the world, America for collectibles is pretty not tapped out, but it's pretty maxed out. Where there's so much opportunity in other countries. So the global appeal of Shohei Ohtani is going to pay huge dividends for Topps as they continue their expansion all over the globe.
If I can just piggyback on what you were saying, PSA has opened an Asian office. Is that correct?
Yeah. So last year we opened 2 new headquarters, one in Jersey City and then one in Tokyo, Japan. So those graders came out here for months and months and worked right alongside our team. And it's pretty incredible how they're they're hitting things almost exactly as they do in our other headquarters with regard to gem rates and things along those lines. But it's just from extensive training and working alongside our team. But yeah, TCG is huge in Japan, obviously, but Shohei bucks that trend and gets people. Everyone is excited when you put a Shohei card in their hands, and I'm hoping to go to Japan for the opening series this year in Tokyo. I think that will be amazing. So I went to Korea for Shohei's debut, and that was insane. There were so many people out there from Japan, but all over, wearing Ohtani jerseys and excited. And he's just, as long as there's no more gambling stuff coming up, like he is someone really, really special in this industry. So hopefully he can keep it going.
There's
John,
I'm sorry. Because we're talking about the card manufacturers. There's two ways for Topps, Upper Deck, Panini, any of them to grow their business. The first way is to sell more product to their current customers. And that's they already like you. You want some French fries with that, But the more difficult way, and what Fanatics and Topps is doubling down on, is finding new customers. Because once you find the new customers, then you can get in that virtuous cycle of, okay, now I'm going to sell them some more stuff. If they get in the door with Shohei Ohtani, they establish a beachhead in Japan and in Asia, then it opens the door to basketball, football, maybe at smaller amounts at first. But so Fanatics is really, the 10X is not 10X more product, it's 10X more customers.
Yeah.
And Shohei is a door opener.
I mean, to me, I can't imagine, any player that's even close to him in baseball right now. And I can't, even in the next year or two, especially if he goes 50-50 this year. John, how often do you get people asking for Ohtani in upstate New York?
Oh, quite a bit. I sell quite a bit at shows. I mean, like Dr. Jim just said, Chris pointed out, he's really at this point now, the Aaron Judge is up there, maybe sort of in the conversation. Paul Skeens is sort of making a name for himself on the pitching side, but Ohtani's the guy now for MLB. Especially Trout was the guy for years, and now injuries have sort of put him, unfortunately, on the back burner. And now he's playing, he's a Dodger now. He's out of Anaheim and non-playoff seasons, and and he's still exciting. Even if he never pitches again, he's still one of the greatest baseball players, barring injury, we're ever going to see. Then when you factor in that he's, like you said, next year he'll be back on the mound, he could win a Cy Young and an MVP potentially in the same year, every year for the next 5 to 8 years, let's say, or more, depending on health. So it's like Dr. Jim said, it's a no-brainer if you can write the check and get him. And I see Orlando's comment, right, comparing him sort of like Michael Jordan back in the day. That kind of transcends out of your sport, right? You don't even necessarily have to be a baseball fan to know who Shohei Ohtani is. People who aren't NBA or basketball fans knew who Michael Jordan was. I think he's getting into that air, pun intended, if you will. So,
well, let me just say this, because Chris is a noted Upper Deck alum. I am not saying that Upper Deck made Michael Jordan, but the fact that Upper Deck prominently positioned Michael Jordan in this industry to be the tough autograph and to be the prime card, that added to Upper Deck success, even though some was UDA and all that. And so for Shohei, who's could be the next Michael Jordan type guy, just the idea that there's so much focus on him is not just good for Topps, it's good for the whole industry. And it's going to be good for him. He's still got to produce like Michael Jordan did, but every indication is that he can. And he might even bring back pitching, and that's, wow. What do you do for an encore? I'm going to win Cy Young as well.
Yeah, really. I'm just reading some of the comments here. Otani needs to get into the playoffs and do some damage. Then his stuff goes past the moon. I mean, I think as long as he stays healthy at this point, I think his stuff is going to keep ascending the way he's playing.
Wait a minute. To me, that's overrated. He's a Dodger now. Well, again, they have disappointed sometimes in the playoffs, but they've they always have a strong team. So he going across town, he dramatically increased his postseason chances. And he's the same player. He's in a different league. So I think winning championships in a team sport that's dependent on everybody being healthy and peaking at the right time I'm not going to hold that against him if he never wins a world championship. I think winning a Cy Young is a bigger deal than him being on a world championship team this year. That's my editorial statement.
Yeah. Dr. Jim, I remember when we were putting out Jordan content at Upper Deck, and people were saying, you're watering it down. There's too much Michael Jordan autographs out there. And we're like, gosh, there's really not. Right. and exactly. We were always very careful with his signature not to overuse it. And to, make sure that people and he was always very careful as well. He didn't want to sign till the cows came home. And that's one of the reasons why he liked working with Upper Deck, is we made it so simple and easy for him to sign. But yeah, that driver of having, a Jordan or LeBron autograph in every case is a big driver, and it gets people cracking. But I don't know if Topps is going to, the terms of the deal enough to know how many autographs we're going to see of Otani. But one would hope that they can be used as a driver for products and a value proposition for customers when they're pulling, some of the lower tier players. I'm looking at some of the cards around me, and it's a thrill when you get an Otani or a Jordan. It's one of those moments you almost never forget. Your hands will shake when you're pulling it out of the pack, and that's exciting. So hopefully people have a lot of those opportunities coming up.
Okay, so they get the deal is 1,000 Otani autographs. If it is, how about 1,000 one-of-ones? So, and you put one in each case of some of these products.
Or they do combo signatures. You look at what Topps has done. That Olympic promotion was absolutely insane with regard to how many of those were sold. I think it's genius. They put it in a sealed pack. I have mine coming right now too, so I can't wait to get it. But that draw, what Topps has really done an effective job at is these hard chases that everyone is getting in on, whether it be the Tom Brady autographs or now this triple autograph of Durant, LeBron, and Steph. It's driving revenue, and it's creating excitement in the industry, even if not everyone's going to walk away a winner. And that's one of the tricky things is how many of those experiences can you have where you're hoping to get something that is just too far out there, and you give up on the category? Because if they make that high end one of one, you've got to get this unique rare card, and you have so many people walking away disappointed. There better be some levels beneath that make people feel good about what they're opening up and getting out of packs.
Well, we have examples going before us in terms of every state's lottery. They figured it out. You have to have some minor winners, but the big winner and their solution, Chris, is to continue to raise the jackpot. And so the Steph, Durant, and LeBron card, that is sufficiently enticing for people, for 500 and some thousand people to take a chance. And when you do the math, it's way worse odds than any state's lottery. Any state's lottery.
Yeah.
Good reminder that the Powerball is up to $680 some million. Right. Make sure you get your tickets. When I first read this comment, Dan, I wasn't sure if you were talking about Michael Jordan or Shohei Ohtani. I wonder if there's a parallel there with the two of them, but just curious. Getting back to some other comments. Trout who? Yeah, I mean that's becoming John, you've beat up on Trout's health for as long as I've known
I love
you.
Mike Trout. Like when he plays, he's a tremendous player. But now we're just seeing it's like he can't put full season again. He's probably, if he never plays again, guys, in chair, he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. But right, we know how sports and the hobby is, right? It's a what have you done for me lately, hobby and sport. And I really when he signed that 10-year deal to stay with the Angels, first off, I thought that's way too long. Number one, like I get it, you're familiar, becomes home, but like a 3 to 5 year deal. But like I felt like he should have, maybe looked at leaving or going to a bigger market. But it really doesn't matter if you can't stay healthy, what city you're playing in, because you're not playing. So that's hindsight being 2020. I hope he turns it around. He's not super. I mean, he's not young anymore in the grand scheme of things, but he can still play 5 to 8 more years of healthy baseball if he can avoid that injury bug and add to, probably a Hall of Fame career already. But, is he going to kind of limp into the Hall rather than go in on a higher note, I guess is really where the story is going to be told.
Yeah, but let's compare it in another way that makes people feel queasy, and that is if Trout is 5 years older than Ohtani, let's say. Trout's big problems have been in the last 5 years. So who's to say that when you hit your 30s, your mid 30s, whether you're Ohtani or Trout or anybody else, stuff happens. It's a draining game, especially when you're pitching. So I don't remember Trout having big problems in his 20s, but he's had problems in his 30s. Ohtani, he may have Ohtani's already had a major injury that people have shrugged off because it's only affected pretty much just his pitching, and he should come back all the way. But it's difficult.
Trout got the chat room going. There's some
I think he's a hot button guy because of he was significant for a long time. Like we made people may write him off now.
Yeah, I also love that he collects. He comes into PSA to drop off cards. He is when he's one of our own. I tend to like them even more. And that video of him opening with his son while he's hurt is so dang cool. Like how cute is that? His kid saying, "Put it in this, Daddy," and it felt scripted, it felt loaded, but it's not. It's he likes to open products. So I think that's a cool aspect of Mike, even if his body hasn't been there. I love that he's kind of one of our own inner nerd.
There are a bunch of questions on here. Dr. Beckett from Dan Ryan says, your thoughts on how many times a high-end card, let's say above 10,000, had to sell for you to feel comfortable that was the market value of the card, as opposed to a one-off sale?
Well, again, I could answer that personally for me. If I knew it's kind of like Card Ladder when they're trying to vet whether it's a real sale or not. When I could personally do that, but our guys, our team, back in the day, there just weren't very many cards that were above $10,000 in the 80s or even in the 90s. And so they were way more conservative than I was. In fact, they wouldn't price cards that were serial numbered to 25 or less, which I would have done. But then by that time I was kind of the CEO, and I wasn't in the trenches anymore. And they just said, we don't have confidence in putting prices. We're trying to level the playing field and provide a fair basis for what these cards are selling for, what they're worth right now, last month. And it was so they wouldn't do it.
Chris Carlin, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Trout, Judge, and Stanton, which of them gets 500 home runs? Stanton's the only one with 400. And then I'm going to follow that up with, if there's a 500 home run chase for one of these guys, what would that do to their cards?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, Stanton definitely seems like he's a machine, but that's why we watch. That's why sports is great. You just don't know if Trout can come back. Like I often said, I'm sure Tiger's going to win one more major. I'm sure he is, because you can't count that guy out. He's a freak of nature. So who knows? But yes, 500 home runs means a lot in baseball. It means a lot to collectors. And one of my favorite items is a 500 home run autograph ball I got behind me. So adding signatures to it is something that collectors get very excited about, and it's a big deal. So, but yeah, for me, that's why we watch.
And of course, we got to give a shout out to the Jose Uribe error sales for comps back in the day. I'm sure that was hours of discussion in the executive room on how to price Jose Uribe. All right. Big releases this week, and we can't cover them all, but I think the one that we do need to talk about definitely is the Topps Composite Football. This is the NFL unlicensed, but player licensed. And let me just show if I get all my things off here. And there's the CJ Stroud. And so it's Topps Chrome Black on the Composite Football. And I just wonder what you guys thought of the picture, first of all, the cards in general. And what do you think? Does it matter that the team portion is not licensed? John?
I think this is Topps version of Chronicles, which I actually liked. Panini Chronicles, not the first couple years, but the later incarnations of it, when they included like all different brands of the cards. I know some people didn't like it. It didn't matter the first couple years or years later. I like the recent Chronicles that Panini did. So this is Topps throwing their hat into that ring. They can't obviously call it Chronicles, but it's Topps Composite. And the pictures I've seen, I haven't opened it yet. I'm not even sure I will. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But it's very well designed. I like the designs of what I've seen pictures wise and spec sheet wise. And if I know for some people, being unlicensed is a deal breaker, and there's no questions asked. That's where the conversation ends for them. For me, I'm not there. I'm still, a card design guy. If the cards are well designed and they look good to play, CJ Stroud, TJ Watt, they're still great players, even if you don't see a Steelers or Texans logo on their helmet. So it's not as much of a deal breaker for me as it is for some people. Other people just won't even have a conversation if it's not licensed, and they're not wrong. That's their opinion. So it's more for me. It's design. What I've seen is sharp, and really, there's no more bad products anymore, guys. With the breaking world, right? Everything in a sense will sell out eventually if that's the way it goes. So they're not good. They're probably not going to lose. It's just who buys the product, right? You like it, you buy it. You don't. You don't.
Guys, this is controversial, but it's come up in my discussions about the Star Company. But the card manufacturer, the company brand, can frequently be more important than the licensing status. And so when you see Topps Composite, it's Topps.
Yep.
And for many people, that's the end of story. It's a Topps card. How could it not be a legitimate card? Major manufacturer endorsed it. Then you don't flip it over in the back to say, oh, they don't have this kind of licensing. It's the new collector, I don't think cares. In fact, if it goes for less money, they might perceive it as a bargain. So I
am shocked. I am shocked that the NFL is allowing them to take such liberties with the design and the photographs. Even being able to see a bit of the team logos is usually a no-no, but it goes to show you that the NFL is very interested in seeing Topps and Fanatics succeed as their partner for the future. So
they're looking the other way.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at this, you might not even notice that there's not a logo.
If Panini or Upper Deck made a card like that, they would be sued, in my opinion.
And it took I did a double take when it first came out to make sure I was pulling up the right images, because it looks like that could just be the pose in the regular jersey. Now I know that a lot of people have comments on this, but how do you think this impacts historical value of cards made by Leaf over the past decade? And I assume the question is really pajama cards in general, not just Leaf. Dr. Beckett, Chris, John, anybody want to take this one?
People are much more accepting of those than they were 5-10 years ago. So, and I'll say Kevin O'Neill's departure at Leaf was a bit surprising to me recently, but not totally. But he did a lot to kind of right that ship and make sure that Leaf was seen as a more credible and viable type of product, even though they were still doing some pretty wild things with the Haktua girl and things like that. But it had gotten better. And, I think there's just more acceptance of these types of cards than there were. And even when I see custom cards, there are so many people out there that make incredibly cool custom cards that have no licensing at all, but they're just, it's kind of like the dream cards we always wanted. Right. So I think that printing technology has come far enough along and people have gotten good enough with graphic arts to make their own compelling offerings too. But be careful if you do that because you could be sued very quickly. So,
guys, if we're not a random sample here. We're more veteran collectors. Veteran collectors can dichotomize things like that. I want to collect these brands, but not these brands. This brand, the history of it, I've seen it, and I'm just not going to collect them. The new collector just says, "Hey, these are cool cards out there." It's just a nuance to them. They may not even notice. Like I said, the brand, it's a card that's available at a card show and it looks interesting. And oh yeah, it doesn't have a logo on it, or it's done by this company I haven't heard of, or it's a custom card. It looks interesting. And so I think the newer collectors, it's a nuance that they don't care about. Veterans say, hey, that's not as good. They're talking to themselves.
Absolutely. And this is a good question. If anybody knows, I don't know offhand, is Topps composite game worn or event worn? I don't know. I would say probably event worn because I don't know with the NFL not having the NFL license if they can use the game worn, but that's purely conjecture.
Okay.
Well, they could use the word if they wanted.
They could, Chris?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
go ahead, Dr. Jim.
Game worn versus event worn is something that the hobby Illuminati talk about. But I don't know that the average person that gets the card is going to flip it on the back. Oh, no, it's only he just put it over his neck. They're saying, wow, look at this card I got. So I really think the hobby purists are concerned about that, and they should be. But, the card companies there's a finite amount of material, and they're expanding the amount of material that they can, and assets and material they can put into their cards. And I just want it to be truth in packaging. If it's not game worn, don't say it is.
Yeah.
And to Dr. Jim's point, right? I think the name on the brand carries maybe more weight than even the logos. So look at some of the comments here. Philly Joe, I don't collect Panini, anything. Dylan, Double D Vintage says, give me Topps or give me Death. I think people are loyal to brands, much like we are when we go grocery shopping, right? We got to have the real Oreos, not the Walmart version of Oreos, right? They taste pretty similar, right? But there's something in our minds that say the real Oreos I have to pay 80 more cents and get those because it's the real McCoy. So
I always tease my son when I bring home crispy rice instead of Rice Krispies, and he's like, no, not the crispy rice.
Yes.
So I think it spills over. I think there's brand loyalty in the hobby as well, and I don't think that'll ever change. I'm long time in the hobby. Would I rather have a logo than the team logo than not a team logo? For sure. But I'm kind of looking at designs first, right? I've seen cards that have team logos, and it just didn't move my meter, and the cards were kind of terrible in my opinion, and I didn't buy the product. So it's, it works both ways.
And Ruben, Aldi does have fantastic food. Best underrated grocery store. If you
And
have
full disclosure, we do shop at Aldi, so to make Ruben feel better.
Give a shout out to Aldi.
There are young people that don't want logo merchandise in what they're wearing. They want to wear a cap with nothing on it. They want to wear a shirt that doesn't have a polo player on it or something like that. They want something more generic. There is a pushback against the branding of America and the branding of the world. It's a minority.
Yep.
And so not everybody thinks the same way.
No, it's true. Whenever I see someone wear a hat with like no logo, I'm like, why? Or what happened? Did it fall off?
I have one, and I had to buy it on Amazon because for my head, I had to custom order. It was too fat. So
well, that's a very interesting point as hats, because the one of the big takeaways I had from Fanatics Fest was some of their exclusive merch drops. They had a box with 3 hats in it for about $300, and it was the first. All the hats were a little different or unique or had trading cards on them, or we've never seen collectible headwear really. And you think about it, they always mass produce these hats, but when someone wears a hat for a team that's just a little different, it's a big deal. And one of the I just spent a lot on this one. This is from Korea for the Padres for my wife, but it's you can't get some of these things sometimes. And so to see dealers selling regular baseball caps for $120, $160 was very surprising. And people were ripping into those boxes left and right. I was quite surprised by that.
Wow.
That's crazy. Mookie says the Topps brand on non-licensed football cards comes with the promise of future licensing. That's a plus. Well, that is a different angle, is knowing that this set may be around next year with the licensing. But somebody had a great comment, and I forgot who it was, and I apologize. Can you think of an iconic non-licensed card? I just thought that was an interesting perspective.
Well, isn't Joe Montana rookie, Walter Payton, do those qualify?
No, I mean, they're not. They were licensed appropriately for the time.
Okay.
Which was
I think Leafs did a good one with Pete Weber. Who do you think you are? I am. That was one I was like, I'll wait for that one to come down in price, and it still hasn't. I'm like, son of a gun. But it's rare you get a bowling card that gets people talking.
Wemby, yep, that's pretty recent for the same reasons. Now, Dr. Beckett, can you explain the Joe Montana, since a couple of people put it in here?
Look, turn over all the cards from the Topps card. Walter Payton, same thing. You just flip over to the back, and you can see that it was licensed appropriately for the day. They were the kind of the only game in town, and so it's just, they're not cheating or anything. In fact, if there were to be a lawsuit about it, it's unclear whether it would win or not. So that each of the licensing group just looked the other way.
There you go. Does Danny have a size 10 head? Just buy a flex fit. Yeah, I'm beyond flex fit, but thank you.
Do you know your hat size? I'm actually asking in a serious.
I'm not going to say it.
Wait a minute, what's the first number?
Real close to an 8. How's that?
Okay.
Yeah, not quite, but real close.
Okay.
All right. Wrapping it up on the home stretch here. Mad City Brewers is a great show. Hope everyone has a safe and great rest of the weekend. I love holiday weekends that we get to celebrate and talk cards. Yeah, the hats are too nice to sweat in. Mike Petty, I think, is answering for me or him.
I'm saying, listen, I'll put I'm 7 5/8. I wear 7 5/8 hat size. So
let me tell you, Bob, there's a direct correlation between those numbers and me sharing it. Great show. Thank you, Mike. Be safe, Rex. Thanks for having us on in the stores. Any final words, guys?
Thanks, Danny, for quarterbacking.
Thank you, guys. You make it easy. Hobby Hotline will be back next week. Bench Clear Media every Saturday, and then the replay on the YouTube channel for Hobby Hotline. Episode 315 is on, so next week will be 316, 11 a.m.
I have to come back. It's John 316.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there you go.
On that one.
They
Goodbye.
can't get rid of
Thank
me.
you,
I'm only
everyone.
kidding. See ya.
Appreciate everybody. Have a good one. Take care.